Hello, and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith at an unusual time yet again. Thank you for being here. If you're here, I see some familiar faces in the chat. Yeah, I see Pirate Tomsky, the British mod. The British mod is here, guys. Um, Good to be back. My husband and I, as you some of you know, we've been traveling to Europe for we were in Europe for 2 weeks. He and his full band had a tour there. It was amazing, amazing shows. I got to meet a deprogrammed listener in Switzerland. That was very cool. That's always cool. Last year in Europe, I got to meet a couple people who watched the show also, and it always just it's a humbling experience. It's like a small world kind of when you have a small world moment and you're like, "What? This is crazy." There are good positive things that come out of the internet and this tool that allows us to connect with people all over the world. There are lots of bad things too. Don't get me wrong. I've talked about some of those, but there's some good things and that makes me happy. And as I said, the shows were incredible and I think they're just going to get better each time he's able to tour there. And so this was just a 2-week tour, but they're already working on dates for next year. So if you are in Switzerland or Germany, and I think probably a few more places, he'll probably go back to Amsterdam next year and a couple more places. So would love to see you. I would love it if his music could take us to the UK. I'd like to see the UK mod and some other folks. So prayers up for that. That would be cool. Okay. So we're back. I'm a little jet lagged, but boy, am I happy to be back in my house and my studio. And I just want to thank all of you folks for being here. If you like the show, if you want to become a paid sponsor, I don't have any um, actual corporate or any kind of sponsors like that, even though I make joke sponsorships like exercise is my sponsor. It's just you guys. So if you like the show and you want to contribute, you can do so for as little as $1 a month. You can do so here at YouTube or at Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals. And yeah, I'm going to get better at saying that up top instead of forgetting. Okay. We've got a big day tomorrow. I got my MAGA hat on, Make America Great Again. And I've got a lot to say because I haven't been able to do regular shows. And this is not at our regular time, but my jet lag, I'm all over the place. So I don't even know what time it is. I'm just glad you're here. Let's start with this. This is so interesting to some people now, especially if you're one of my new Europe friends that I've made and who are curious. There were some great conversations I had with some Europeans and some folks who were shocked when I told them that in the US, the white nationalists here, the crazy racist Groyper white nationalists, first of all, that they're not big. That movement is not big here. I don't know what it's like in your country, but in the United States, this is a fringe clown group of people. Nobody takes them seriously. They are not an esteemed part of the right. Although they have been gaining a slightly more influence in the past year or so, since October 7th, I would say. And I would like to keep them a friend's joke. I would like to make sure they don't ever have power. And but they are a joke and they are clowns. And a lot of Europeans were shocked when I told them these Groyper white nationalists are against Trump. They are rooting for Harris to win. One of the head clown white nationalists, Nick Fuentes, started this thing called the Groyper War in August. Again, you Europeans, I know this is news to you. He started this whole public thing with lots of support where he's like, we're going to make sure Trump doesn't win. They're for Harris. Okay. And I saw this right before I started the show where this white nationalist, Richard Spencer, you may have heard of him, is neo-Nazi Richard Spencer. He has now endorsed Harris. This is true. Now, I know this is a shock and a surprise to a lot of Europeans because I've talked with some of you and it was a surprise. It's not a surprise to us who've been awake for a while and who, especially if we live here in the States and are awake, we predicted this. Here's what's happening. The white nationalists, the actual white nationalists who are very fringe, the actual extremists, anti-Semite white nationalists who are very fringe, they're not going to support Trump. He's a liberal solution to the problems in that we are currently facing in the West. He's a liberal solution to communism and Marxism and this overwhelming evil ideology that is my old ideology, woke, this identity Marxism. He's a liberal solution to that, a liberal political solution, or a liberal political vote. If you vote for him, you're casting it for a liberal solution. They don't want a liberal solution. They want a fascist, white nationalist solution. They want to drive demand for a fascist solution. And so they are going to support the candidate, and they are supporting the candidate who they think will make things worse faster. And that's Kamala Harris. And that's a no-brainer. And unfortunately, what's scary is that they're probably right. They're right. Because the worse things get, the more people demand extreme countermeasures. And they want more moderates moving to their side. Trump is not a white nationalist. Trump is not an extremist. They want an extremist. So they are going to vote for Harris because they think, rightly so, that she will make things worse faster and that more moderates will become extremists like them and demand, at some point down the road, demand an actual fascist white nationalist candidate. That's what's happening here. If this is a surprise to you, welcome to the real world. It's time for you to leave the cave. It's time for you to leave the cave and the shelter of the propaganda that you get fed. It's not your fault. In Europe, you're getting the same propaganda we get over here in the States. I know you are, because I encountered it there too. But it's not your fault that you're bombarded by propaganda. But something like this, if it shocks you, it should be one of those cracks in the foundation of your beliefs. One of those little pinpricks that allows you to see the light and to see that they're not feeding you the reality of the world or accurate information. If it surprises you that the white nationalists are opposing Trump, that should be a wake-up call for you. Okay? So here's a tweet. I put it on the screen from my friend, it's ma'am PhD Delightful. And she said, "We live in the craziest timeline. A BLM leader has just endorsed Trump. Famous neo-Nazi Richard Spencer endorses Harris." Yes, that's the world we're in right now. Let me just show you some of the white nationalist stuff, because again, this may be surprising to you. Here's a headline from 2 days ago in Newsweek. Kamala Harris gets surprising support from alt-right's Richard Spencer. It's not surprising support. It's not surprising at all. They want you to think it is, because it doesn't match up with everything they've told you. The mainstream media, the corporate media has lied to you. They've lied to us. They've told us that Trump is a white nationalist and he's an extremist and he's alt-right and all these crazy things. That's not true. When you meet a liberal like me, or if you hear about liberals like Brett Weinstein, or liberals like RFK or Tulsi Gabbard who are supporting Trump, that should be a wake-up moment for you. If it contradicts the narrative you've been fed and you have any curiosity left alive in you at all, if there's a curious bone left in your body, that should make you say, hey, why is that liberal person supporting Trump? Maybe I don't know all the facts. I don't understand. Why are so many liberals supporting Trump? And there are a lot of us liberals supporting Trump now. There were some of us in 2020. There's a lot of us now in 2024. What's going on here? Another wake-up moment. Hey, why are all these white nationalists supporting Harris? Why wouldn't they pick Trump if he's a white nationalist candidate? Because he's not. Hello. Is this thing on? Okay. So this article from Newsweek, Richard Spencer, who's been credited with creating the term alt-right, publicly endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris and the Democrats down the ballot in Montana on Friday night. Spencer, one of 14 organizers ordered to pay millions in a civil trial after organizing the deadly 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, told his 93,500 followers on X, I want you all to know that I'm voting for Kamala Harris, and I hope you will too. Given the slightly surprising endorsement, I love that Newsweek knows it's not surprising, but they had to put slightly surprising in there. Given the slightly surprising endorsement, both due to his politics and previous comments about women, Spencer clarified in a phone interview with Newsweek on Saturday morning, quote, I just want someone who is competent to be in charge so that something can happen, as opposed to demonization of the other side. It's pretty crazy, right? Pretty funny. Here's an article from August that talks about the Groyper War I just told you about. Again, if all this is news to you, please don't take my word for it. Go and research it. You can look up Nick Fuentes, the Groypers. They are in the US, in the United States, they are the fringe white nationalist, radical, extremist, anti Semitic movement. And in August, they launched this thing, stupid thing, called the Groyper War. Here's the article. A Groyper War struggles to exert influence but paves the way for other bad actors. And this is an article, white nationalist influencer. I think this is this written by a white nationalist himself? I think it is. Isn't Jared Holt? That name is familiar. I think he's a pretty gross dude. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they're talking about here, white nationalist influencer Nick Fuentes and his loyal fan base have tried to pressure Trump's 2024 presidential campaign with blasts of online propaganda. They may have violated social media platform policies in the process, but platforms have not taken action against them. It may encourage others to try similar tactics. Nicholas Fuentes, an influential white nationalist podcaster and activist. So he's like the leader of the Groypers. Groypers are, again, here in the States, they're like the clown white nationalist guys. Okay. Nicholas Fuentes, an influential white nationalist podcaster and activist, vowed last month that he and his Groyper followers would oppose former President Donald Trump's 2024 presidential campaign until their policy and personnel demands were met. If you scroll down, it says, during an August 12th episode of his America First podcast, Fuentes officially declared a Groyper war against the Trump campaign. He instructed his fringe but devoted fan base to use social media to pummel the campaign with criticisms and demands. So they are actively trying to make sure Trump does not get elected. Now, here's another article about it. This one also from Newsweek. And this is from August 9th. This is when the Groyper War started. America's far right turns on Donald Trump campaign. That's from Newsweek. Right-wing political pundits Nick Fuentes and Laura Loomer have launched attacks on former President Donald Trump's current campaign strategy. Usually unwavering supporters of Trump, they have now declared open opposition, with Fuentes announcing a new Groyper war against the Trump campaign. And so let me scroll down just a little so you can see what he's saying. Fuentes, a controversial political pundit known for his inflammatory rhetoric, took to social media on Thursday night to express his frustrations. Quote, dare I say it? I am declaring a new Groyper war against the Trump campaign, he said in a video address posted on X. The so-called Groyper War Fuentes refers to is a term he co-created in 2019 to rally supporters of Trump and other right-wing individuals towards adopting white nationalist ideologies. His followers refer to themselves as Groypers. Quote, this is what he's saying to Trump. You have alienated us. You have ignored us. You don't listen to our concerns. We have been left behind. There he is. This is this young guy. This is the clown, the head clown at the Groyper Inc. Many think he's a Fed, by the way. I don't know if he's a Fed or not. There is video footage of him on January 6th on a bullhorn telling people to go inside, and he didn't face any consequences for that. Unlike there were grandmas and others who went to prison, but this guy who was actually telling people to go inside and inciting that, no consequences. Kind of weird. I don't know if that means he's a Fed or not. Either way, I know he's inauthentic. And he is a con artist who claims the name of Christ while he pushes racist hatred and pushes actual misogyny. I know. Those of you on the right who how the crazy racist left, the woke left misuses those terms, you've become inured to them. I hear from you and you're like, "Hey, you sound just like them. You're calling people a misogynist or a racist." Yes, because those words actually mean something. And there are people who are actually racist, like the woke left, like the Groyper right. The words actually mean something. What they've done to you is they've misused them so much that you are now believing they don't mean anything at all, and that they never fit. The shoe never fits. The shoe does fit. I save those words for when they actually apply. They do apply to this guy. Okay. So that was interesting. And then I figured I would show you the BLM activist. Now, he's a BLM leader in one state. He's like a state leader. It's not all of BLM that's endorsing Trump. It's one guy. I believe he's in Rhode Island. But I wanted to read some of his comments and see if I could figure out why he's endorsing Trump. Is it the same thing? Is it a case of the extremist left wanting to select the candidate that they think will make things worse so that more people will come to their extreme solution, right? Like, is that what's going on here? But in reading his comments, I don't know. I think this guy might have actually woken up. You guys tell me in the chat what you think. Here's an article about him. BLM activist plans to vote for Trump. Black Lives Matter activist. He says he's been blindly loyal to the Democrat Party. Okay. And this is what he has. His name is Mark Fisher. He's the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, Rhode Island. Yes. So he's a state leader. So he endorsed President Trump and said the Democrat Party is not for us. And then here are some of his quotes. Quote, "They don't really understand because they don't educate themselves on Donald Trump as a person and his history," Fisher said. Fisher reaffirmed his support for Trump in an interview released Monday by the New York Post, proclaiming that he, quote, "definitely will not be supporting Kamala Harris. If she got anywhere close to power, it would be a disaster for this country," Fisher said. The BLM activist said that lack of improvement in Black communities should be reason enough for Black voters to ditch the Democrats, pointing to failing urban school districts and long-standing challenges with crime and poverty. This is true. This is true. Sounds to me like he woke up. He says, quote, "For so long, we've just been blindly loyal to the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party, for no reason," Fisher said. "They have given us no reason to have such loyalty, to maintain such loyalty to them." Okay, so then what happened? The Black Lives Matter Rhode Island, they disavowed him, even though he's the co-founder of BLM Rhode Island. They were like, wrong. They're disavowing him. They're casting him out. This is why I think he woke up. It's not like BLM as a movement is endorsing Trump. It's just this one guy. This one guy sounds like he's having a waking up moment, and he's about to be called a right winger and all kinds of things, even though he's a BLM co-founder. Here we go. What do they say? Quote, "The right wing continues to use and amplify fringe Black voices." That's what they're calling their co-founder now, a fringe Black voice. He's a fringe because he woke up. To create an idea of broad support for their corrupt candidates, the two groups said in a joint statement to CNN. They're saying he's not a part of us and has never been affiliated with us. He now runs since he got booted, a Maryland-based organization called BLM Incorporated. Yeah, so he's branded a right-winger now, guys. Nothing to see here, right? Shun him, says John. Shun him. It's kind of like how the leftist woke trans activists disavow and shun any children who were mutilated and sterilized when they were kids because they were lied to and told that this would alleviate any feelings of that they didn't fit in, that they were lied to and told that they were born in the wrong body and they should get these surgeries that they can't actually consent to because they're children. Any of those kids who now as young adults like Chloe Cole are suing the doctors who did this to them, the butchers who did this to them, those kids are shunned and disavowed by the woke left when they come out and say, hey, this was wrong, what happened to me. I woke up, right? Super Base is here, our membership fairy. Thank you, Super Base, for supporting Deprogrammed. Super Base gifted 10 memberships. So if you got one of those, give a thank you. I appreciate you so much. Pirate Tomsky, the British mod, £5. Thank you for the super chat. Says this show is brought to you by Pirate Tomsky. Pirate Tomsky, I really want to come to the UK. We'll have to see if we can make it happen. Would love to see you in person. Michael Collier for $4.99. Thank you for supporting Deprogrammed. Says, welcome back. Gotta fly. We'll catch the stream later. Enjoy, everyone. I missed you guys. I miss doing these regular streams. So thank you. Detransitioner, says Helena. Yes, the detransitioners are shunned. So I don't know about you guys, but I've been feeling the past week, just past 2 weeks, maybe leading up to this election day, just up and down, a lot of different thoughts and feelings. And so predictions and things like that. So I think it's a good time to remind myself and to remind any of you who might be feeling a little bit disillusioned or a little worried about what's going to happen, that if you're a believer, now if you're not a believer, this may not be any kind of soothing balm to your soul. But if you're a believer, hopefully this will be soothing balm to your soul. No matter what happens, no matter if they select Kamala, I know who's on the throne. And I truly believe, if you read scripture, it tells us that God can use all things for good. God can even use evil for good down the road. He can take evil and use it in some unexpected way for good. Later on, it can be used for good. And so either way, you know, I'm not going to lose my crap. I'm not going to lose my mind no matter what happens. I didn't lose it when they selected Biden. I'm not going to lose it if that happens again. But here's what I think is going to happen. And I hope I'm wrong, but this is my prediction. I see a lot of people on social media who are very confident and feeling very hopeful about Trump winning. And a lot of these are first-time Trump voters. A lot of these are liberals who are voting for Trump for the first time. Brett Weinstein being one of them, which is so exciting. Heather Haying, his wife, one of the smartest women in the world, voting for Trump. And maybe I should pull up what she said about Trump, because that's something really good to read for people. I'll pull that up in a second. But so you've got a lot of liberals who are newly voting for Trump for the first time. I already did that in 2020. That was the first time I voted for him. And so I've already been there, done that. But here's what a lot of them are very hopeful. They think that possibly it's too big to rig this time. I don't necessarily agree. I kind of think that they've already rigged it. This is just what I think. YouTube's probably going to take this down. I'm not allowed to have opinions or tell what I think about anything. It's an opinion, YouTube. It's not an assertion of fact. I'm just saying I think this. And so I'm already prepared for the demoralization that they would like to see happen for people. I'm already prepared for that. And I would suggest that you consider that, you imagine that, do like one of those thought exercises if you need to tonight, where you imagine them declaring it for Harris and go through all of those feelings of powerlessness and demoralization now, so that that's not a shock to the system if it happens. That's all. That's what I think is going to happen. But that being said, I still have hope. I have hope that I'm wrong. I hope that it's too big to rig. I hope that Trump's team is there. I've already seen Trump's team has been calling out duplicate ballots. They've been correcting problems in early voting already. And every time I see that happening, and I'm like, yes, look at this. They just pulled out a bunch of duplicate ballots in this state, you know? So I think they're more on the ball this time. I hope that's the case. that they're able to prevent a steal, but I'm prepared for the worst, and I would suggest that you prepare for the worst too. Um, Loomis. Yeah, this is kind of where I'm at now. I don't want you to think I'm a doomer, a gloomer, or whatever, but Loomis says this one's way too close for them to not do shenanigans if they want. Yeah, and it's not even that I don't actually think it's close at all. I think that the polls, I think they're lying with the polls. I think they're already creating pre narrative. They're creating the storyline now. And like if you go and look up polls, you'll see articles from all the corporate press where they're like, "Oh my gosh, Kamala just jumped up in the polls in Iowa." Or, "Oh my goodness, look, Kamala just took a lead in North Carolina." And I don't believe that for a second. No. I think they're preparing the path now for the story they want to tell, so that their sheep and those people who are in that cult are more likely to buy it and swallow it. That's what I think's happening. In reality, I think it's a huge margin for Trump. And even in Europe, it was crazy. Like I wore this MAGA hat just when we were out like hiking and stuff. I'm not, I'm not going to bring politics into uh like if I'm going to hear my husband play music or someone else play music or a show or a movie or something, I don't like to bring politics. I'm just going to have fun. But if I'm out hiking and exercising, why not? So I had this on when I was hiking in the forest in Germany, and there was a random guy who said, "I love your hat." And then we were in Whole Foods today, and I forgot I was wearing this, and my husband was like, "Oh my goodness, I forgot you were wearing your hat." He was laughing at me, and then I had forgotten too, and then we were checking out, and this woman, this Latina woman, was like, "Hey, I love your hat." I'm like, "Thanks." It's always these surprising moments of like, you're in a Whole Foods, you expect everyone there to be woke because it's kind of like Sprouts. You're like, "Oh." But there's these surprising moments where you're like, "Ooh, surprisingly based," and just the anecdotal um, evidence that I have of the number of first-time voters for Trump who are liberal is out of this world. So my gut on the pulse of things is that it's a very wide margin for Trump. But again, I don't trust the system at all. So we'll see what happens. I also I'm going to be doing tomorrow night an election night stream. It's going to be on Brahma Bull's channel, and Brahma Bull, the bullpen, and Brahma Bull from the Christian panel. It's going to be on his channel. It's called the Bullpen. We're starting it at 8 o'clock Central, I think. And there's going to be a crazy lineup of people. We're going to be live streaming, hopefully until they declare president, which they're probably not going to do. Because did you see? They've already, again, laying the groundwork to rig it. The New York Times and all these different publications and all these different counties like Maricopa, is it Maricopa County in Arizona? They're all coming out saying, "Hey, we probably won't be able to declare a winner for a while, maybe even a few weeks." They're telling us that now. Why is that? Isn't that weird? I thought we were in progress. Aren't we in 2024? What's the purpose of all of this like high powered digital voting and everything if it's like, we're not going to be able to declare a winner? Isn't it funny that you can do paper ballots like the old fashioned way and know who the winner is the night of? With a transparent system, you can know who the winner is the night of, but with this murky digital system and mail-in voting and stuff, like, oh, we may not know. We may not know. But we're going to be doing a live stream tomorrow night, so come hang out with us if you want people to hang out with. I think it's going to be me, Brahma Bull, Adam Krigler, Mike Harlow, Brian Grappner, Culture Casino is going to be there, Nick Weiser, Comics Division, Slender Dad, Little Chad. I know I'm blanking on some people. Mad Cheesemo is going to be there. It's a ton of great guys. It's going to be fun. And if we can figure out the tech, I'm going to simulcast it on my channel. So you won't have to be alone election night. Razmix 1 sounds awesome. It does. I'm just selfishly glad I have some people to hang out with tomorrow night. So it won't be as stressful seeing what happens. In 2020, election night, I was at Tim Pool's Timcast house, and he on the election night stream, he had a bunch of people there in person, and as the night progressed, we were all in good spirits. And then we all know what happened that night. All of a sudden, they were like, "Hey, we found a bag of ballots. It's exactly the amount. They're all for Biden. Oh my goodness!" That's a joke, YouTube, but not too far from the truth, right? It was a crazy night. It was a crazy night. Dan Trainer, election party. Woohoo, election party. Loomis. I mean, I don't get that. You had like 78 million early votes. Half your work is done. Yeah. There's no reason this should take several days. It's not like they're counting 100 million votes the day of. Right. Right. And it's not just several days, Loomis. They have told us, oh, it could take us a few weeks. That's what they said. A few weeks. That's insane. Okay. So here's something. I had somebody ask me this on social media, and I want to tell you, and I think he was asking because he gets asked this question. He wanted to know how I would answer it. And here's how I would answer it if you get to ask this question too. He was like, Keri, can you give me some proof that they stole the 2020 election? Well, yeah, I can give you some evidence. I'm not going to say proof. I can give you evidence that there may have been vote tampering. May have been. And I can point you to threads, and I can point you to different places to read, but I don't have to. And here's why. Like, I can do that, but I don't have to, because half the time when a person's asking me that, they don't want to read it anyway. They don't want to read that stuff anyway. And the point is, what I'm saying is, I don't trust US elections. I have a lack of belief. I'm making a negative assertion. I don't trust them. I'm not making a positive assertion. I'm not saying the elections are safe and secure and you should trust them. That's not what I'm saying. The burden of proof is on the person making the positive assertion. If you are making a positive assertion and saying, I believe the elections are trustworthy, then you should prove to me that they are, because you have the positive belief. Okay. So prove to me that they're trustworthy. What are some ways that you could do that? Well, we could go back to requiring voter ID in all states. Imagine that. I am never going to trust that our elections are true if we don't have voter ID. If you don't have to prove who you are at the polls and that you're a citizen and you're legally able to vote and that you haven't voted multiple times and that you're not an illegal alien, I'm not going to trust it. Sorry. Why should I? So until we have voter ID, no, I don't trust them. Also, I would like to go back to paper ballots. I don't trust the digital system. They don't seem to work well. They keep telling us, oh, we might need several weeks to count it. Oh, it's a digital system. Let's go back to paper ballots. I'd like to go back to something that's a little bit harder for people to manipulate if they want to, for bad actors to manipulate. Let's go back to paper ballots. I would like a transparent election. That's when I will trust it. And to me, the irrational belief is the belief that our elections are trustworthy. That's very irrational. Why would I believe that? Why would I believe that, given that we don't have voter ID? We don't have transparent paper ballots. We allow all this mail-in voting ever since COVID. Why would I trust them? And given our history, you do know that our government, our three-letter agencies, we interfere in the elections in other countries. You know this, right? You know we do this. There's evidence that we do this. It is a fact that we do this. You know this. And you want me to believe that we don't do this here? I'm sorry. That's irrational. I can't. That's like you're asking me to have faith in some of you guys who push this. Um some of you are believers, but a lot of you are not believers. And you're the kind of people who mock of faith in God. You mock it, right? Um I- am I allowed to mock your faith in government? Am I allowed to mock it? Your faith in the three-letter agencies? Well, I trust the FBI and CNN. What? Why? What reason do you have to trust our government? That's crazy. And even if they tell us tomorrow Trump won, even if they tell us that, which I don't think they're going to tell us that, but even if they tell us that, I still don't trust our elections. Why should I? I don't trust our elections going back as far as Kennedy. Maybe further. I'd have to read more to know about before that, but going back at least as far as Kennedy. Why should I trust it? Our hope is that it's too big to rig. That's my hope. And that doesn't mean they didn't try to rig it or they didn't rig it to some degree or that it was a fair system or that doesn't mean that it's trustworthy or anything at all. Texas Sheep Lady. Hello, lady. Says 15 states don't require voter IDs. I know, isn't it crazy? It's there's no reason for that. I have never had a leftist ever give me a good reason for this, a rational reason for this. Why don't you require an ID to vote and prove who you are? It's something, if it is the most sacred right, why don't you require an ID? We require an ID for almost everything in buying a house, a car, renting a vehicle, getting a plane ticket. Kamala Harris required an ID to go to her campaign. In order to get into her events, you have to show an ID, but not to vote. I had to have an ID to pick up a piece of artwork I had framed at Hobby Lobby. You have to have an ID multiple times a week. People are going to ask for your ID, but for some reason, oh, we shouldn't have it for voting. That's stupid. There is no rational reason for that. The reasons that they offer, and it's really embarrassing. It's really cringe and gross to hear white leftists say this, and they will say this if you ask them. They will say, well, because this is what they've been programmed with in the cult. They're brainwashed. This isn't their thought. They didn't come up with this on their own. They were told to say this, and it's embarrassing for them when they do say it. They will say, these white people will say, oh, because black people don't know how to get an ID. It's because black people don't know how to use a computer and go online and figure out how to get an ID. It's because black people don't know where the DMV is. They will say racist stuff like this because they've been told to say it. They've been programmed to say it. Those are not rational reasons. Those are racist excuses. Yes, racist. What's up? Robert Lowry. Give it up for Robert. Another mod just gifted 10 Deprogrammed memberships. Thank you, Robert. Good to see you, dude. You gotta come see our house now that the porch and balcony are finished. Torgo the White, member for 6 months. Thank you, Torgo. Says, just do what I do and play Karate Survivor. Is that how you handle stress? Waiting until we find out the verdict. I've never played that game, but I will look it up. John Free says, it must suck to be black and have all dysfunction blamed on you, right? They use black people as a scapegoat for everything. Like the leftists use them for everything. I'm just checking to see what you guys carry. Random question. Hey, Ron Copperman, why do you have the statue of the Virgin Mary in your background? Not opposed, but just asking. End of the squirrel moment. Oh, I don't mind you asking. I love art, and I like all different kinds of art, but I love religious art. In the past few years, especially, I've gotten a lot more religious art. I just think I don't know, I've gravitated more towards it. I think it's more meaningful. It's kind of like when we go to Europe, for example, and we get to visit all the cathedrals, and they just blow me away. Just the artistry and the time and the care and the meaning. And I used to collect a lot of dark art. I still have some dark art back before I was a believer. I'm still drawn to some dark art, kind of creepy looking art, modern art, I guess. But now I'm really into more like religious artwork and classical art, Renaissance art, and then I also really like the 1920s and 30s through like and the 40s, like the Art Deco period. I really like those artists. Um, this is one of them here, for example. I forget this artist's name. Oh man, I looked it up, but this was very popular in the 40s and 50s, this style. And this is an antique candy box that has that Art Deco style on it. You see that? And I have a lot of this kind of style of art framed. I don't know. I like the old things. But anyway, about the statue, I love a lot of the Catholic art as well. And I saw that Mary statue in a antique shop in I was at a conference. Where was it? It was in New Hampshire. I found her and I brought her home. She survived the trip. So I have had some people, not you, Ron. I'm just saying occasionally I've had weird detractors on this channel. I had one who was stalking me and following me to different channels and saying that I was an idol worshiper because of my statue. No, thank you. I uh I have had idols in my life and I still struggle with making things idols, but usually for me those idols have been substances, which by the way I just celebrated 5 years sober while I was in Europe. And today is my husband's date, 5 year sober date, which is awesome. But for me, idols have been people mostly or substances. And at one time I would say woke. So my old ideology was definitely an idol. Um, anyway, I'm sorry, I forgot your husband's name, Anthony. Am I close? Yes, Anthony. I think he's in the chat. Old school millennial. Also, Keri, do you think highly likely that the left will activate the quote, mostly peaceful Antifa workers? Oh, yes. Well, that's another prediction. So if for some reason they do call it for Trump, we know that without a doubt, there is going to be leftist violence. Without a doubt. We know this. It doesn't take if you're awake and you look at events and you look at patterns, there's no way they won't be in the streets doing what they do. They're going to be burning down cities. They're going to be out there saying that they're protesting against fascism while they are behaving in fascist ways, while they're behaving like foot soldiers for fascism, out there using violence and riots to threaten and intimidate and trying to overthrow the results of the election. That's what they're going to be doing. They will use every method possible. The same people who opposed any investigation into election integrity in 2020, if they declare Trump winner tomorrow, or whenever they declare the winner, those same people are going to be saying, we need an investigation and we can't certify these results. You know that. They're going to use every political, legal method that they have. They're going to use violent methods. They're going to have the black bloc out in the streets intimidating people. The cities are not going to be safe for a certain time after. They're going to be planning terrorist acts. They're going to be they're going to be encouraging assassination attempts. Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, they're all currently encouraging crazy extremist leftists to do crazy things. That's what happens when you falsely call Trump a Nazi or falsely call him white nationalist and falsely say he's going to destroy the world. Like, you are encouraging crazy people to try and take him out. And they know that. They're evil. They don't care. They would be very happy if someone succeeded in killing him. They don't care. chaos brings tyrants. Yes. Dion says, I know it's a long shot, but I hope that the win is so big that it shocks them into some much needed self reflection. I hope so too. I always have that hope, honey. I'm like you. I mean, I'm sort of that way about a lot of these little things too, like the seeing that the white nationalists are endorsing Harris. I'm like, maybe that'll wake some of them up. And I know when I have one-on-one conversations in person with people, sometimes that does. I wouldn't say it's a full-on waking up moment, but it's one of those little cracks that might lead to them waking up at some point, because it does shock them. They're like, what? You know? Ron Copperman. So it's a default that there's going to be a questioning of the election unless it's a landslide. I think so. In either direction. Think about it. If they say Kamala wins, I mean, we don't trust that at all. Rightly so. And if they say Trump wins, those leftists are not going to want to trust that, because they live in this fantasy land where nobody supports him. Even though they can, with their eyes, they can see there's all these liberals coming out, unprecedented number of liberals coming out to support him, but they're like, I don't see that. What's going on? All of those people are now right wing. That's what they call me. She's a right winger now. That's what they called RFK Jr. He's a right winger now. Tulsi Gabbard's a right winger now, guys. So is Brett Weinstein's a right winger. Oh my goodness. That's how they don't see the liberals. That's how they don't see the liberals supporting Trump. They just call us all right wing people. It's crazy. Wow. Old school millennial says Japanese cities held several parades for Trump. That's amazing. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm telling you, there are based people all over this world. Being in Europe and meeting some based people last year and this year, it's like, oh, okay. And I was looking at in Switzerland stickers supporting Trump, like kind of posted in little places, like little Trump support here and they like hidden there and here. It's cool. It's like, look at that secret based person put this sticker up. Super based member for 4 months, Mr. Super based, who is the membership fairy, one of the membership fairies here at Deprogrammed, says, my wife and I just voted for Trump in California. Woohoo! I'll tell you what, let me tell you what, Super based. No matter what happens as a result of this election, no matter who they declare the winner, I want you guys to have a good feeling, and I wish I could share. If you are worried, I wish I could share the good feeling I have. And let me try and explain it. I've had such a feeling of love and actual joy. I know they tried to steal that word, but actual joy in and freedom, a feeling of freedom in just saying what I think and connecting with people who understand and who are awake and who get it, and this feeling of just community with like-minded people. And like I said, when I wear this hat, I've been expecting bad things, but so far only good. I know some people have given me dirty looks and stuff, but only good comments and only this good sense of community of like, I get your sister, that kind of thing, you know? And I love that. And so no matter what happens tomorrow, I just want to continue that. I want us to continue living in that place of freedom, of saying what you believe to be true, regardless of what people call you and how much hate they throw at you, and knowing that you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you and you're not a weirdo. I mean, you're the good kind of weirdo, but you're not the only. Let's say you're a liberal who just woke up and left the left. There's a lot of you who come to my channel. You are not alone. And you don't have to feel like when you leave that cult, there's all these psychological barriers to leaving, first of all, and there's all these things set up to make you question, like when you leave any cult, to make you question what's real, because you've been living in a false reality. And so when you start to wake up from that, it's like you're like, is it just me? It's not just you. I'm telling you, it's not just you. There's a ton of us now. And hopefully you've met other people. If you come to Deprogram regularly, hopefully, I know some of you've made lifelong friends with other folks in the chat. Like, and I love that. Like, you're not alone. And also made friends across the aisle. I love the fact that there's so many of us who are like, I've got friends who are have been lifelong conservatives. I've got friends who woke up and left the woke cult like me and who still consider themselves liberals. I've got friends who left the woke cult and are now conservatives. Friends who are atheists, who are awake, friends who are Muslim who are awake, friends who are Hindu who are awake, different faith systems, that we don't share a belief. We don't share, we're not aligned when it comes to our faith, but we're aligned when it comes to being reality based. And I would say seeing the world more accurately and objectively than people in that woke cult do. And I am so grateful for that. So no matter what happens tomorrow, like, let's just keep it going. Let's keep it going. And look, there'll be a silver lining if they do appoint Kamala. The silver lining is things will, well, here's the bad part first. Here's the cloud. Things are going to get worse faster. Yes. Things are going to get worse faster. But the silver lining is that people wake up. More people wake up, the worse things get. And I would view it as my duty if they put Kamala in there for 4 years. It's my duty as those people wake up to help them wake up in my little tiny sphere of the world of what I can do to help them wake up and also to help them keep them from going over to some crazy extreme solution like these crazy Groyper people who are saying we need fascism. No, we don't. That's not the solution. It's two sides, communism, fascism, two sides of the same authoritarian, evil, oppressive coin. I don't want government tyranny of any flavor. And they both of those sides lie to you and say it's one or the other. It's not. It's not. I believe in liberty. I believe in maximizing human freedom, like as much freedom as you can have, as long as you don't hurt people. What's that libertarian phrase? Like, don't hit people and don't take their stuff. Small government. Randy Wallen for $20. Randy, hello. Thanks for supporting Deprogrammed. Randy says, hey, welcome home. Leftists are trolling for monsters. They want chaos and they will take advantage of chaos. True evil. Yes. Thank you for the super chat and thank you for this warning. So this is a good warning for what happens if they declare Kamala the winner. Okay. So we know if they declare Trump the winner that their leftist Antifa, Black Bloc, and all these other people who aren't even Antifa, these leftists are going to be out in the streets, mob rule. They're going to be rioting. They're going to be doing violence. They're going to be burning cities down. The corporate media is going to be gaslighting us and telling us it's mostly peaceful. They're going to be encouraging it. The media and the politicians are going to be encouraging the violence and lying to us and pretending like it's not happening. But if it is happening, it's a good thing because it's against fascism, right? Like that's what's going to be happening if they declare Trump the winner. If they declare Kamala the winner, we cannot behave like they do. We cannot behave like that. That's a good warning. So I think that deserves a moment of silence so that it sinks in, but like we can't. And we don't. We have not behaved like that. As much as they tried to make January 6th, they tried to make it like that. They tried to use it like that. They tried to say the insurrection. It wasn't that. Look at it objectively, leftists. If you're here and there's a bone of open-mindedness left in you, I want you to look objectively at the BLM riots, the Antifa riots. Look at the actual numbers of people who were killed, people like David Dorn. Look at those people who died, the businesses, the Black businesses that that were burned to the ground, the Black people who died in those riots, all the people who died in those riots. But hey, guess what? Black people died in those riots. Look at that violence and that intimidation that broke out in cities across America, and look at how the media, the corporate media, excused it, and the leftist Democratic politicians encouraged it. And then look at January 6th. These are supposedly crazy right-wingers, right? They're gun owners, right? Why didn't they bring their guns? They didn't bring their guns. They didn't bring their guns, but it was an attempted coup, but they didn't bring their guns. It was an attempted insurrection. It's too bad they forgot to pack the guns for the insurrection. It wasn't an insurrection, you idiots. I'm sorry. I shouldn't name call. That was my last video. My last video, I had low patience. Please retract that. I'm just saying you're gullible. You're gullible. They've fed you propaganda. That's not your fault. But nobody brought guns. Nobody killed anybody. Nobody threatened to kill anybody. Look at the assassination attempts against Trump. Look at how the leftist politicians encourage that with their rhetoric. I'm asking you, open-minded liberals, to look at that and then ask yourself, hey, why don't I see that from the other side? There's a reason. Yes, a cop killed Ashley Babbitt on January 6th. That's what happened. A cop killed one of the protesters. That's the only person who was killed that day. G-Man says, they did bring their Bibles and prayer books, which are more dangerous than guns. True. Pirate Tomsky, punch the like button. Yes, punch the like button. It helps the algorithm. Unarmed. Yeah, they were unarmed. So weird, right? Just, oh man, if they hadn't forgotten all their weapons at home, could have been a successful insurrection. They just forgot them. Your average patriot nerd, thank you for the super chat. Member for 2 years. Woohoo! Says, congratulations on your sobriety anniversary. Thank you so much. It was a big day. It was a big day. I'm forever grateful. And I'm like, my husband and I were talking about today, because like I said, today's his 5-year sobriety anniversary. We're like a week apart. And we were just talking about it, and he did a post about it and how he's so grateful to God, and also that he doesn't have those urges anymore. And it is very rare. I'm so grateful. It is very rare that either of us ever have like an urge for a drink. I don't ever. It's so rare. I mean, maybe 5 times it's happened where I've been like, oh, and even then it's not like a compulsion to drink. It's a nostalgic kind of, oh, that would be great if I could sit outside a restaurant and have a mimosa. And then if you struggle with sobriety, here's what I do. I'll tell you. Maybe you could do this too. Then, because I had someone ask me this week about struggling with staying sober. So here's what I do, and you can try this. If I have one of those nostalgic feelings of like, oh, or I remember a good time with alcohol, then I will force my brain. I want to retrain the neural pathways. So I force myself to think about then what would happen if I had a drink, what would happen next. I don't just leave it with the happy, fuzzy idea of like, oh, mimosa at a cafe. No, then I will say, okay, and then what happens after the mimosa? And I'll imagine what happens. I'll imagine myself having another one, and then going and getting a bottle of champagne, and then going home and then drinking all the champagne, and then waking up hungover, and then the next day going, well, I already fell off the wagon. I'll get another. And you force your brain to do that, to play it out, so that your neural pathways change, and you don't just stay in that like reward center place of like, go get the drink, it'll be great. It's like, no, let's play the whole thing out. Play out the movie. Pirate Tomsky for £5. Mr. Pirate Tomsky, my British mod. Keri, did I tell you that the tambourine is going on my knitting gift shelf? In my new house, the other knitters won't leave me alone. It's torture. Oh, you didn't tell me. I love that. You guys, congrats to Pirate Tomsky. Since he's said it here, I guess it's not a secret. He has a new house, new homeowner, and I'm so happy and so honored. I sent him a tambourine. I thought, you know, when we get together, we'll play it. I'll bring my banana shaker. We'll have a little band. I don't know. I just felt like tambourine suits you probably. I'm glad you're putting it on the shelf. That's cool. Super bass for $5. Congratulations on your sobriety anniversary. God bless. Thank you so much. You support Deprogrammed so much. I appreciate it. And gifted 10 Deprogrammed memberships. Are these 10 more? Oh my gosh. Thank you. 10 more. And Southeastern Keiju for $2 says the older I get, the less fun post drinking became. Yes, that's the other thing, is I can't even imagine it anymore, because it would be. I saw a funny card at Whole Foods today. I should have bought it because it made me laugh out loud. And it was a picture of someone doing a yoga pose, like bent backwards. It said yoga. And then under it, it said vodka. And the person was bent backwards doing the same pose, but they were passed out like on a deck. That's it. After the older you get, the after part of all the drinking or whatever the vice is, it's not so good. It's harder to hang. It's harder to keep your body up, and you start feeling the effects more easily, I guess. So, yeah, hangovers, no thank you. Could not do it. John Burcham, my biggest problem is I don't get the hangovers. Oh, that would be an issue, because they are a nature's way of giving you a disincentive, I think. So if you don't get them. So I think maybe the older we get, obviously, the easier it is to get out of, hopefully for most of us on average, to get out of those bad habits. I hope so. Music sounds so much better sober, says Dan. It does. And actually, you know what's funny is a lot of times people drink to either to mask emotions. I know that sounds weird, because we think of it as like you drink to enhance emotions, right? And they do. It does in the moment enhance. It enhances momentary delusional kind of emotions. Like, when you see somebody who's had too much to drink and they're crying over something stupid that they wouldn't cry about if they were sober, or they're like, it will enhance if you're feeling good or happy. It does enhance it in the moment. But if you come to rely on alcohol, like if you're dependent on it, over time, I think if you're using it in an unhealthy way, like I was, you're using it to prevent yourself from feeling dealing with like long-term emotions that you haven't dealt with. And so there's this idea that it enhances everything, that it makes it better, like emotions. It doesn't. It actually blocks a lot of emotions. And it also, I actually think it doesn't really enhance music and movies and stuff very much. People think, oh, I'll enjoy this concert more with booze, but not really. And let me tell you something surprising. After I quit drinking, I become emotional now without drinking. When something's very moving, like music or a movie or a film or something, or with music, there's one song, for example, that my husband does called The Wind. And the violin, he's got this amazing violin player, Megan Burson, who travels with him. And when she comes in on the violin, there's no words on the violin part. There's no lyrics over this part at all. The violin itself is so beautiful, and it's speaking its own words to the heart. I know I sound cheesy, but I'm trying to explain it. The violin itself is speaking to you, the listener. And I cry probably 50% of the time I hear her come in with the violin on that song. I will cry. And that is amazing. That never used to happen to me when I was an alcoholic, where I just experienced that sober, that kind of emotional moment of something you can't really put into words. And Keri is a violin simp. I am. It's one of the most beautiful instruments, I think. So, yeah. Kelly Judson for $5. Congratulations, your sober anniversary is a big deal. Thank you so much, lady. It is a big deal. And I like sharing when it's my sober anniversary every year because maybe that will encourage other people. I know people have told me it's helped encourage them, and also because I get encouraged because in the comments or what people say to me, people that I didn't even know were sober will sometimes share with me, "Oh, for me it's 11 years or 10 years or something." I'm like, "That's so inspiring." So, I think it's I think it's good to tell people when it's your sober birthday. Thank you, Kelly. G-Man, Keri, where do I send your McMaga visor? Oh, dude, did I not email you back? Okay. I'm going to message you. Are you on Twitter? Send me an X message. I'll send it to you right. I promise. I'll send you my P.O. box right after this. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. And thank you for, I cannot wait to wear a McMaga visor. There was a young person I met in Switzerland who, super smart kid. I say kid, but he was 20. Super smart and talented. And we were talking about a little bit about US politics and politics, the political system in Switzerland and how they don't have like a president. They have this 7-person committee. And it was just really different how they do things in Switzerland. And we were talking about in Spain, the government there, in Germany, and all kinds of this 20-year-old knew a lot. But when I said we were talking about Trump for a minute, and there was a Spanish guy there I was talking to, and I said something about Trump, and I was trying to explain because he said the 20-year-old said, "Well, in Europe, that people would never vote for him because he's kind of a buffoon." And I was like, "Is that true? Like you guys wouldn't vote for a buffoon? Because yes, he is a kind of a buffoon, but we will still vote for him." And he's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because he's a big middle finger kind of to the establishment. And he's not a part of the establishment, and the establishment has been lying to us and screwing us for decades." And he and then the 20-year-old was like, "Oh, and he doesn't care what the media says." I said, "Exactly. He doesn't care. They will try to come at him by and call him like Biden in the media, or making a big deal about some roast comedian's joke. It wasn't even Trump. It was some comedian, Tony something from Kill Tony, who made a joke about Puerto Rico and garbage. And they tried to come at Trump, and Biden called Trump and all of his supporters like us garbage. And what did Trump do? He turned it on its head and he used the media against itself, and he drove a garbage truck around. Yes, like a buffoon, like a troll, like a comedian. It was hilarious. And now all the media has to report on that. He knows how to turn it back on itself. Like when they come at him, which they do, you can look at stats. The media is like 80% positive for Kamala and 80% negative for Trump. They're just completely prejudiced. The system, the elitists, they're against him. And when they come at him, he is some kind of magician who's learned how to turn it back on them. And this 20-year-old was like, started laughing. He was like, "Yes, and also I saw he was working at McDonald's." And I was like, "Yes, he was." He did do that. It's so funny. He Have they been paying attention, says John. Yeah, well, some people, it was really, I don't know, a gift to be in Europe right before this election and just learn about how they view the American political system and the kind of media that they are fed, which I will tell you, it's just like here. It's corporate propaganda. They are fed probably the same 80% negative anti-Trump media that we are, maybe more, maybe 90% negative Trump. And but there are still people who are awake and based, and they do not listen to the corporate media, same as here. And They all have different stories. Like last year when we were in Amsterdam, we met some really based liberals. I would say liberals, like classical liberals, or people who were progressive artists, and one of these people who's a friend, this person's waking up moment was COVID policy and seeing how authoritarian it was there in the Netherlands, and also seeing what they're doing to the farmers there and how they're calling all the farmers there. They're calling the farmers far right just so they can take their land. And seeing how the media and the corporations are doing and the government's doing that to people, that was the waking up moment for some of the people I had met in the Netherlands anyway. So when you ask, are they awake? It's like here, they are being fed the same propaganda we are, and some of them are awake despite that. And then you get the sheep. There's the sheep there too. So, G-man, they're turning the farmers gay. They're turning the farmers right wing. It's so silly. Now whenever we see whenever my husband or I see a farmer on a tractor, we're like, look at that right-wing bigot. Because that's what they're trying to tell people that farmers are. Look at that crazy bigot riding his tractor. Loomis, the McDonald's thing is kind of insulting. Guess what I'm not doing the next 8 days straight because of the way the schedule breaks? Flipping burgers and fries for no money. One day is a stunt. Oh, well, yeah, it was a stunt. Absolutely. I don't think anybody thinks it was anything other than a stunt. People, whether they like or hate Trump, we all know it was a stunt. That's why I loved it. It was a media stunt. Kiwi, what is based? Okay. So John says it's the opposite of woke. Yes, that's a shorthand. So based, as far as I understand, the etymology of this word, like where did it come from colloquially, it supposedly came from reality based. And I use it in that way. I use it as a very broad way. I just use it for awake people who are living in reality. It doesn't mean that you have to be Republican. It doesn't mean I'm not a Republican. It doesn't mean you have to be right wing, although you could be right wing. It doesn't mean you have to be conservative, although you could be conservative. It just means you're living in reality. And it's a very broad tent. It's a very big tent of people. And yes, I would say it's also anti-woke. It's against this predominant belief system that's taken over the West that pretends to be liberal and progressive when it's the opposite. It's not liberal. Censorship is not liberal. Political violence is not liberal. Legalized racism and sexism is not liberal. This woke ideology, this identity Marxist ideology that's taken over the West and is currently the most popular religion, based is very opposed to that, because if you're reality based, you can see that for what it is, right? So that's how I use it anyway. Based in reality, yes. Kiwi says, so us. Yes, us. I thought it was people who liked a good cheesecake base. Okay, since we're just having fun hanging out here, getting ready for the verdict tomorrow. Hopefully we get the verdict tomorrow. I will share this with you. Speaking of cheesecake base, since we were in Europe, Mr. Pirate Tomsky, we ate so much kuchen, so much cake. Just like the best cake. Europe has the best cake. And one of my husband's oldest friends made this amazing, she's German. She made this amazing apple cake, like the strudel almost, apple crumb cake. I can't even, it's like it's better than the ones we bought in the pastry shops. It was like, I can't, the most amazing cake you could ever dream of. Europe, you do that right. You do desserts right. I will say that. And somehow you manage to make them taste better with less sugar, which is amazing. Brahma Bull. I plugged our show tomorrow. I'll mention it again. Brahma Bull says, "Who's getting excited?" I'm excited because I get to hang out with you guys tomorrow. It's going to be on Brahma Bull's Bullpen channel. You can follow him on YouTube if you're not following him. If we can figure it out, I'll simulcast here as well. But he's got an amazing lineup of folks for election night stream, so we can all hang out together as the craziness happens. And I hope you'll come. It's going to be me, Brahma Bull, Lil Chad, Slender Dad, Mad Cheesemo, Comics Division, Culture Casino, Mike Harlow, Adam Krigler, Nick Weiser. Who am I leaving out? I know there's a few more. That's a big Brian Grappner. Dan Trainer. Good to have fun today. Yeah, we are. I'm just having fun being back. We didn't get coming back from Europe, we stay with family in Dallas. And so we didn't anyway, I couldn't do the show at my regular time because we weren't actually physically home yet. And I decided, look, I'll just do it later so I can do it at home because I really wanted to do it in the studio. It's fun to be back, and it's fun to travel, but then when you get back, you're like, everything's in order again, and you know how that feels. Home, there's nothing like the feeling of homecoming, right? Pirate Tomsky, what did you think of bread over in Europe compared to the US? Have I not talked about this before? If my husband's still in the chat, he will give you an earful. They make the best bread compared to the US because, number one, because they don't mess up the flour like they do here. So if you go down this rabbit hole in the US, you will probably come out the other side like my husband, who now mills all of his own flour and he does homemade baking. Because what they do here with the flour in the US is they take out all of the nutrients and they enrich it by putting fake stuff back in it, and it's just not the same. And I think this is objectively true. When we had our German friend's son visit us last year, he was 19 years old at the time, first time in America, and we took him to an HEB, like one of the fancy HEB grocery stores here in Texas, and one of the ones that has like the good bread, but this is good bread by American standards. So I was like, oh, this is our good bread. And he just laughed at us. I was like, no, this is not good bread. And he's right. Yes, Dion, they fortify the bread here like elections. Yes. Winning comment. They fortify it. Yes, says Loomis, all the stuff we add into our bread and foodstuffs are banned in Europe. Yes. So this is one of the ways that there's several reasons I know I'm not a libertarian. Many people, when I left the woke, kept telling me, "Oh, you sound like a libertarian. You should investigate them." And I did. It took me a while, but I finally realized I'm not a libertarian. Although I have a lot of libertarian friends and I agree with a lot of libertarian principles. But I actually think that I do believe that the government, we should have a small government, and the government does serve a function. There's certain reasons we need a government. And I do believe in some government regulations. I do. Very limited, though. But it's weird because the government regulations we do it's like upside down world. We don't regulate our bread and foodstuffs, and we are feeding people poison in the US. This is what RFK is talking about all the time. And he's like trying to highlight the fact that we have a childhood obesity epidemic here in the States. We have a childhood autism epidemic. Why are these things happening? Well, look at Big Pharma, look at the FDA, look at our food industry here. And so this is a place where I think we could stand to do more government regulation over our foodstuffs and the process by which our foods are made. What I don't agree with is what we currently have, which is government regulation for all this stuff they have no business putting their fingers in. Like if I want to give someone money for them to cut my hair, I don't need the government involved in that transaction whatsoever. I don't need them to require a license from that person or fees or anything to the government to be able to do that. Like, that's between me and that person cutting my hair, okay? Like, there's no reason for them to get involved with their sticky fingers on everything. But that's what they do. Yeah, it's crooks. Yes, it's regulated by crooks. So they regulate all the wrong things and they don't regulate the things they should be regulating, like our drinking water. Mark, thank you for the super chat for $10. Thanks for supporting Deprogrammed. Mark says, fun fact, your statue is Our Lady of Grace. Oh, this one? Original image was place of prayer in Ipswich. Reformation government took it to burn, but it turned up in Nettuno, Italy, and remains a place of prayer. God's got a plan. Our Lady of Grace. Oh my goodness. I've got to read about this later. I didn't even know that. Thank you for that. See, this is why I like a lot of religious art is there's always like some story and history behind it that I'm learning. Yes, Texas Sheep Lady, this is a great example. If I want to get fresh milk from my neighbor, I should be free to do so. Yes. But they're going to regulate that, right? But not all the chemicals that these big corporations are putting in food. A lot of us who care about these issues, and I newly care about it. I know very little. I newly care about it. My husband and I have been reading about it the past 6 months or so. But for those of us who do care about it, there's one brand of chips that originated here in Austin, in Texas. I think it was Austin, but it's definitely Texas, called Sieta. They do chips and cookies and stuff. And they had a really great family business story about how they originated, and they didn't use any seed oils. They used only avocado oil. And so they were basically, if you wanted to have good tasting tortilla chips without making them yourself, if you wanted a store option, you could buy Sieta chips. And they got very popular. Good for them, right? And they started to go big in national and stores and Costco's and stuff. And now they just sold out to PepsiCo for, what was it? Anthony knows, my husband knows. It was like 10 million or something. Was it more than 10? It was something crazy. And you know that PepsiCo is not going, oh wait, no, 10 million. So small. No, it was 1.2 billion with a B. 1.2 billion with a B. I mean, good for them that they created something so successful and it rose to the top of the market. But the reason it rose to the top of the market is because people were desperate for a healthy chip, a healthy brand, and now they sold out to the devil, basically. Why? 1.2 billion. Yeah, right, made them an offer they couldn't refuse. I don't see PepsiCo keeping it the way it is. I don't see them caring enough. They're going to cut costs and they're going to use seed oils, I'm sure. It's so sad. Anthony, yeah, my husband says, Anthony Garcia Music says, Siete Foods, a lot of people trusted them because their story was based around their daughter's gluten intolerance, and they based their entire story and products around that. Yes, they did. And do you know what they did, guys, after they got bought out by PepsiCo? So on their Instagram, instead of mentioning that, they just started posting all these videos about inclusive food and all this woke stuff about Latinx heritage. And this was actually in the comments. It was a great moment because in the comments, it was all these people, left and right, united, saying, we don't care about your race or your color or your inclusive foods or whatever. We just care that you don't put poison in your chips, and now you sold out to Pepsi. And it was leftists. It was people on the left and the right coming at them saying, like, this is the only thing that we have been united about across the board, the left and the right. is Siete chips selling out to Pepsi is a bad idea, and also Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. That's it. Those are the two things we agree on. and we were all in agreement. Like, what are you talking about with your inclusive food posts? Like, give me a break. Okay. I just went to their Instagram to see if it's still, yeah, it's like every day, all day. If you want to be cheered up, go into some of their comments and it's just every day, all day. People are like, what are you talking about? Here, look, look at this. They said, we had a blast hosting our very first Juntos Festival right here in Austin, Texas. It's an honor to be able to gather with inspiring, hardworking vendors and businesses to create a beautiful event for our community. Thank you so much for every vendor and everyone who joined us in celebrating culture this Latino Heritage Month. Latino Heritage Month. Okay. Every post has been like this lately, like something woke. I haven't seen this one yet, but this is par for the course. And then the comments are like, just this sellout is devastating. I don't mind you selling out. What an accomplishment, but to sell out to Pepsi is so disappointing. Everyone, why did you sell out to Pepsi for 1.3 billion? Everyone's like united on this issue. I love it. Left and right, we can come together. I'm gonna drown my SARS in seed oil, says G-Man. No. Yeah, Jim, this is what the beauty of capitalism. Jim T says someone else can start a new chip business. Yes. Yes. So now there's a hole in the market. Now there's that need again and that desire for a healthy chip company. This is how the free market works. And so hopefully there will be space created for another, if there's not too much corruption, for another company to get off the ground. Part of the problem with ESG scores is these woke requirements for companies and corporations is that it's much easier for an established corporation that's been around forever to jump through all those stupid government regulations, these woke communist regulations. It's harder for new emerging businesses to do that. And so it makes it harder to create a competitive company and get it off the ground when you've got to meet all these ESG requirements that the government is imposing on you. That's one of the problems with ESG. But the idea behind capitalism, the theory is that yes, it's a free market, and the best ideas will rise to the top. If you are making the best butter, that will be the butter people buy. You know that they buy more of. If you're making the best chips, if you're making the best cheese, if you're the best cheese maker, that's the idea. Whenever I hear some of these woke people, most of the time they're very young. So I get it because young people, they don't have a lot of life experience or wisdom yet, a lot of the time, of course. And it's mostly young people who say things like, I'm anti-capitalist and, I hate capitalism. When you meet someone in their 40s, 50s, or 60s who says that, that's a little bit weirder. That's more of a red flag because it's like, how did you get to be this old and still say empty things like that you haven't evaluated? You clearly don't hate capitalism. First of all, do you know what capitalism is? I think sometimes what they mean by that when they say that is that they hate corruption. Yeah, I hate corruption too. Any system can be corrupted. Anything can be corrupt. I hate corruption too. But the theory of capitalism is not one of corruption. It's that the best will rise to the top in the market and you give people freedom of choices to exchange money for goods and services, and they will the freedom to put their money to the goods and services that are the best, that they think are the best. I mean, it's not corruption. um and these same people will I think they think that they do understand corruption, because if you point out the problems with communism, they'll say, well, that's just corruption. Communism wasn't done the right way that time. uh No, I would argue that communism, yes, it can also be corrupted like capitalism, but the theory itself is bad. The theory itself, it's never going to be good. Communism as a system, it's never going to be good. Government force is never going to be good. It's never going to be ideal. It's never going to work. The corruption is inherent in that system. It's always going to be oppression all the way down. It doesn't maximize human freedom or creativity or ingenuity. It doesn't set up incentives for hard work or talent. It's not based on meritocracy. So yes, it can be corrupted, but it's also the theory itself. It implies, it requires, it's bad. It implies it requires corruption. It's always going to be bad, I guess is the way I would put it. Yes, coercion's not freedom. Government force, it's not freedom. Capitalism is the government's not forcing you to participate in this system, Sell your goods for money. Exchange your goods for money. Exchange your services for money if you want to. It's the freedom to do that if you want to. That's what capitalism is. Be a better cheesemaker because you'll rise to the top. We're forcing you. No, that's inherent in the hierarchy. You will rise to the top if you're the best cheesemaker in the absence of corruption. Price controls are also not capitalism. Exactly, Thomas. Exactly. Who's been talking about price controls? Kamala Harris. Commie. She's a commie. Danielle Powell for 1999. Oh, honey, thanks for the super chat. I just saw it. Sorry I'm a little late. Congratulations, she says. Shortly after the hubby and I started dating, he said I didn't have to stop drinking, but if I didn't, we wouldn't be together long. That was 14 years ago, and I don't have cravings, but I have an amazing husband. I love this super chat. Thank you. Look at that. And I bet you would say that as sacrifices go, it wasn't a hard sacrifice given that you have this amazing husband, right? Like when you stand back and look at all that you get from that sacrifice seems small, right? Now I know a leftist feminist would look at this and say, oh, that poor woman in that oppressive relationship. But they don't know joy. They don't. They would rather have the bottle. She didn't get the bottle. She got a loving, supportive husband, but she didn't get the bottle. Pirate Tomsky, price controls are a direct descendant from socialism. Yes. Mark, a good spouse is better than cravings. Yes. Eclectic company. I didn't know Kamala has a policy. I know, right? Isn't it weird? They are perfectly happy, the sheep, to vote for this woman who has no record, no qualifications, has stated no policies. It's amazing. They're just going to vote for her because she was appointed. She's never won a primary election. She was appointed and they were told this is your only option. And they're cool with that. They love democracy, though. Don't get me wrong. They love democracy, but don't require a vote for their candidate. Yeah, she doesn't state what her policies are. She keeps saying TVA, like, but she did say in a speech, Eclectic Company, that the way she would fix the inflation is with price controls. That's communist. That's crazy. That's not how you fix inflation, lady. This is your new overlord. Accept it, minions. Democracy. Yes, Pirate Tomsky. That's basically what the Democratic Party's become. They're like, whatever you say. Whatever you say. Okay. I'm I'm really happy hanging out with you guys. I'm probably gonna wrap it up in a second and go enjoy my first night back in our home and on our porch. I'm so excited to go sit on our porch. Jim T says she was installed. Yes, she was. She was installed and they don't care. Isn't that crazy? They don't care. Thomas M. Being leftist is super easy. Just say how much you care and you don't have to do anything. No thought required. Yeah, it's true. Welcome home, Carrie and Anthony. Thank you. Yeah, my raccoon free porch. My raccoon free porch. Okay. I am going to let you guys go. Don't lose hope. This is my message. I've been up and down, like I said, or if you saw my last video, the one I did from Germany, I was definitely not in a very joyful place that day. I was just, I'm done, like I get it. If you're there, let me just say, maintain hope. There's a favorite poem of mine by Wendell Berry. And some of you have probably heard me quote him before. And let me see if I can find this exact. It's a very long, it's called Manifesto, the Mad Farmer Liberation Front. It's a very long poem. But this part is the part that I really love. Okay. He's talking about nature, which to me means he's talking about God. I know that non-believers are like, but that's what it means to me. Okay, so he says, this is in the middle of the poem. Put your faith in the 2 inches of hummus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. He's talking about things that last. He's talking about nature and earth. I have friends who are non-believers who have told me that the closest they have ever come to feeling like there might be a God is when they're out in nature, like hiking and stuff. And that makes sense to me because you are getting away from all of the transitory thing, the temporal things of the world, the things that don't last and don't matter. And you're getting back to nature when you're out hiking and you're in the woods. So I understand that feeling from some non-believers. Anyway, this part of the poem says, put your faith in the 2 inches of hummus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Listen to Carry On. Put your ear close and hear the faint chattering of the songs that are to come. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. This makes me want to cry. It's so beautiful. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. That's the final thought I would like to leave you with. That's how I feel going into tomorrow. I am joyful and I am hopeful, though I have considered all the facts and though I have prepared myself for some terrible pronouncement. That's a lie. I still have hope and I'm still joyful, and they can't take that away from me no matter what they do. Don't let them take that away from you, no matter what they do. And if you haven't voted yet, go and vote tomorrow. No matter if you think it's not going to be a fair election, no matter what, don't become apathetic. Don't let them kill your hope. Don't let them take away your free will and your hope and your joy. Like, screw them. Screw them. Go into that voting booth joyful. I'll see you guys tomorrow. If you're around, come and hang out. Brahma Bull's channel, the bullpen, starting at 8 o'clock Central. We're going to be doing an hours long election stream. So show up anytime tomorrow night if you want to come hang out. And have a good night. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll see you tomorrow if you come over there, or I'll see you. What's today? I'll see you Wednesday. I'm jet lagged. I'll see you Wednesday, if not tomorrow. Okay. Take care, guys. Bye.